What up, everyone? This is Brenton.
And Jenna.
This podcast is all about connecting with our Autumn family in a fun and different kind of way.
So turn down that CB, buckle up, and enjoy the show. It's going to be truckin' awesome.
Well, welcome everybody back to the Autumn Transport Podcast. My name is Brenton, and I'm here today with Jenna. Jenna, what's going on?
What's going on, everyone? We're back.
We are back. And we have a special guest with us today. Her name is Amie Chambers.
Hello, everyone. Excited to chat today.
She has been a friend of mine for quite a while. In fact, more than a friend, she was my coach. I did CrossFit for a few years down in Northfield where I live. And Amie was one of the coaches at the gym and got to know her and develop a little bit of a friendship there with her and her husband through the gym. And Amie does a lot of cool things. So besides coaching CrossFit, she also has a business online helping people to understand food, the things that they eat, and how that can contribute to their health. And so I really wanted to bring you in here today, Amie, to talk to us a little bit. We all know that health is an important topic, and eating healthy has a lot to do with that. How we use and move our bodies has a lot to do with that. And Jenna and I interact with truck drivers every day who, let's say that can be a struggle. Life out on the road can be a struggle when it comes to making good decisions with your food and what you eat. And so I wanted to bring you in and share, hopefully have you share your insight, your expertise, and the things that drivers can do to be more healthy on the road. But before we totally dig in, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about just who you are and the things that you're into?
Thank you. So excited to be here. I would say I'm a hippie at heart, for sure. I was born and raised in the Colorado Rockies. So moving to the Midwest was an adjustment for me because here I came from a place that was super grounded in sort of health and all these things. And moving to the Midwest was just an adjustment. So really learning, okay, how can I make health a focus? How can we make good choices with our nutrition? And we were kind of really forced into this. Chad was diagnosed with melanoma about 10 years ago. And it was a really scary couple months for us. They were afraid it had spread to his lymph nodes. And so I dove into immediately, what can we do from a nutrition standpoint to attack this inside and out? And so thankfully he's been clear. He's been clear for 8 years. But we really learned that nutrition is so tied to our health. And from that moment, you can't unsee. Once you learn, you can't unlearn. And so I really learned how optimal we can feel eating good foods. And it made me want to help other people feel just as well.
Yeah.
So.
I love Colorado. You grew up there, you said.
Yeah.
Did you study nutrition in college or anything like that? Or was it just once you went through that with Chad, it's just kind of become a passion in the last decade?
Really, in the last decade, it became a passion. I was a stonemason. Like that's how Chad and I met.
Wait, a stonemason? Like you were doing like bricks and stuff?
Yeah.
No way.
For sure. How do you think I got these guns?
Yeah, we won't have the video up for this, but for all of you listening, Amie definitely has got some guns.
They were great.
I know, this wasn't just CrossFit. This was definitely not just CrossFit.
So did the interest in nutrition, was that before the interest in CrossFit then as a exercise platform?
It absolutely was. Yeah. When I decided to run, I wanted to run a marathon. And so this is crazy, you guys. I Googled how to get fit fast because I looked up marathon training plans and I was like, I don't know how people have time for this. I don't have time for this. And so I Googled how to get fit fast and CrossFit came up. Okay. And there was no CrossFit near me. The closest CrossFit was Lakeville, CrossFit Templar. So I did my intro at CrossFit Templar and then I ended up training for my first marathon in my basement doing CrossFit with a woman out of California.
That's cool. I've done 2 marathons actually, but didn't have CrossFit to get me in shape. So I took the long training plan program, the long Saturday runs, and did the marathons. Jenna, you've done some running.
Yeah, it's a hobby of mine for sure. Ran in high school, soccer through college, so a lot of running, and then I did a grandma's half marathon
Amazing.
once I graduated. So yeah.
So thinking about nutrition, like you as runners, we learn how to eat for being a runner. And once I started CrossFitting, I looked at, okay, so at the time, CrossFitters were into the paleo lifestyle. And I'm like, so why? Okay, so running has sort of a specific nutrition direction. CrossFit has a specific nutrition direction. You look at other, sports and they have sort of this niche. And I was thinking, isn't there one best way? Isn't there one way that we should all be eating? And that's what drove me to look into it. Because as I started looking, I'm like, why is there so many different plans? Why is there so many different things? And every plan says, this is the way. This is the best way. And so I really wanted to know, is there one best way? And if so, what is it?
I just got done with a book called The Comfort Crisis. Have you heard of that? It's by Michael Easter.
No, I haven't.
Fantastic book. Amie, you'd love it.
Okay.
He takes you through his journey on a caribou hunt up in the Arctic. But weaved through that whole story is his research and studies. He's a professor and a journalist. And so he weaves into the story of the caribou hunt his experience about what does solitude do to make us healthier? What does diet do to make us healthier? What does physical exercise do? And all these different focuses of our health to become the most healthy people that we can be, all wrapped into the story of his caribou hunt. So it's really great. It's on Spotify. If you have Spotify Premium, it's free, the audiobook. So it's called The Comfort Crisis. But he talks in there in the section about diet, exactly about what you're saying, about how there's, we hear terms like paleo diet, the keto diet, the Atkins diet, the carnivore diet, a vegan diet. I have one driver who's on the pescatarian diet. And so there's all of these things that are out there, and turn on Good Morning America, and every 3 months there's going to be a new fad diet. But like you're saying, and in this book, he says, what at the bottom line, at the core, is just a healthy diet look like? Can you talk a little bit about what you found out as you studied what the most healthy diet kind of looks like?
Really, the foundation is fruits and vegetables. Like that should be the foundation. But protein is really, really important. So in all the research and in all the studies, the health mentorships, like all the courses that I have done, I am a fan of being vegetarian forward or plant-based forward, but really understanding that it is pretty darn difficult for us to get enough protein without eating some animal sources. So I'm a fan of that. I think protein should be the foundation of every meal because for us in our lifestyle, it's easy to build a meal around that. Most breakfasts start very carb forward. People grab a bagel. They grab a bowl of cereal, piece of toast, a granola bar. All those things are very carb heavy and very slim on protein. And what it does is it starts your day by spiking your insulin, spiking your blood sugar, and then all day long we're hungry and we're chasing more carbs to kind of stabilize that. It's not a great way to start the day. So starting the day with a balanced meal that has 25 to 30 grams of protein is going to change how you feel all day long. It's going to change the choices you make, your brain clarity versus brain fog. It's going to change that insulin response, and you are going to feel so much better all day long.
I can imagine our drivers, they're sleeping in a truck stop, or maybe they're at one of those wayside rest areas. And a lot of guys will say, I just need a Monster to get my day going. I just need a Rockstar or a cup of coffee. And then if they do have food, it's probably, like you said, a granola bar in the truck or some dry cereal or a Pop-Tart, something like that. Yes. What would you recommend as some options for getting some of that protein in your morning routine?
So when I thought of coming onto this podcast, that's exactly what I thought of. So I had the opportunity to actually coach a trucker.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So things that we leaned into was most gas stations or truck stops have a protein drink, like a Core Power or a Fairlife or some sort of protein drink. And worst case scenario, that's an okay option. I love that as an option. Some of my clients will actually use that as their coffee creamer. They'll put their protein, shake as their coffee creamer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Or drink them separate. The other thing that we would have him lean into is hard-boiled eggs. Those are typically always there, or make them at home. Bring them with, right? Some hard-boiled eggs. And honestly, what I had him travel with, he packed a cooler. Like, he was very good. We learned to really bring a lot of these things because it gets expensive. But the things we'll talk about are things that are accessible there. Lunch meat. If you can get some lunch meat, if you can find some jerky, again, I know this sounds odd for breakfast foods, but we need quick, lean proteins. We can also do, let's say we do a breakfast sandwich, but I would do a breakfast sandwich with maybe 2 hard-boiled eggs on the side. The protein in just that sandwich is not going to be enough, right? So something like that. The other thing that he would do is take collagen, which is like a powdered form of protein, and he would put it in his coffee. It's tasteless, it's unflavored, and it would be a great way for him to get some protein in with his coffee first thing.
I see a lot of influencers do that, where they'd make protein coffee, and it actually seems like it would be pretty good.
It's delicious. And again, coffee doesn't have any calories, but what it does is it spikes cortisol. And that cortisol response, in your sleep podcast, you guys talked a lot about how we want this rest and digestion so that we sleep well. And then when we're awake, we actually want to be awake. We don't want to just be in this sort of zombie-like state. So when all we do is start our day with a Monster or coffee, spikes cortisol, that does not help in moving your sleep to a better place. If you can, along with your cortisol rising, have some food, some protein, some balanced carbohydrates, and some fats, it's going to help that cortisol come down quicker.
Is cortisol, that's typically associated also with stress, isn't it?
Correct. That's correct. Yeah, so cortisol is a good thing. First thing in the morning, our cortisol spike should be highest, right? It really should be highest first thing in the morning. Adding caffeine to that will take it even higher, but it should fall pretty drastically. After about 10 in the morning, cortisol should very steadily start to decline. And when all we do is ramp ourselves up on energy drinks or coffee, then it does not actually decline as fast as it should.
So then by the end of the day, you're not on the good sleep pattern.
Yeah, we're wired, but we're tired, but we're wired. So we don't feel like we can fall asleep easily.
I just want to say, I think we should block out about 2 more hours for this conversation, because I have so many. This is just super interesting. So thank you so far. Here's my thought. Now, I use a lot of apps. So there's one I found lately. It's called Yuka. I don't know if you've heard of it, and there's probably more like it out there. But do you know of any that, what it does basically is you scan products. So like if I'm walking through Target or grocery store, I can scan these barcodes on products, and it tells me on a scale of 0 to 100 if it's good or not. And a lot of times if it says hazard or bad or whatever, sometimes it's just like it's high in sugar, it's not good for you kind of thing. So you have to really look at how it breaks it down and like what you're actually looking at. But a lot of these things, like I could scan and it says hazardous, and on healthcare items too. So I've gotten into the habit of scanning through that, especially for products on kids. I'm not going to put stuff on their skin and in their bodies that's bad. So do you have anything like that, or any sort of apps that you've seen that our guys and girls can use on the road that would be helpful for them for just like a quick judgment on something?
Honestly, I'm a fan of I love that idea. Because what's interesting is I had a client who came to work with Summit Health from working with Noom, which is another sort of habits-based app software. And something that was perplexing to her was she said, these shakes that I think are really, really healthy, I think they were Herbalife. I can't remember what shakes they were, but she's like, they're not rated great. Like in the app, they rate them as I think red, which is like don't consume a lot of these things. And she's like, I think everything about them is good. So why? Really, the reasoning was the process. It was processed.
Right.
So, and that's my approach is I feel like no food is off limit. I feel like the moment you tell somebody you cannot have sugar. The moment you tell someone you cannot have the thing, there is nothing that I want more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't tell me I can have it because
Right.
I want it even more. So I'm definitely a fan of not having any off-limit foods. But what we help our clients to understand is if you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't put it in your body.
Yeah.
If you don't understand some of the word, if you like, I don't know what this ingredient is, let's just not eat that, right? So really, proteins, you should be able to pronounce everything in that. It's chicken, it's turkey, it's this. Maybe it's I love, like the Amy Lou sausages. Maybe it's something like that, but you're going to be able to understand every ingredient. If it's a bar, I love bars. I love RX bars. They have 5 ingredients. When I look at my protein, look for 5 ingredients or less. Lean away from those artificial flavors, those dyes, any of those maybe artificial sweeteners. Not to say that in small amounts, they're not okay. In small amounts, we're going to be fine. But the reality is day in and day out, whole foods.
You know what's funny is I can pronounce Pinot Grigio pretty good.
Fair enough.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
No, that's totally cool. And that's what I said. Like, no app is perfect, and I'm not going to live my life by this thing. But it's just cool to like at least have something to tell you. You know what I mean? It just as sort of a guideline.
Well, I don't use it for shopping, but I think, Amie, we should get back to actually saying what Summit Health is for our drivers and our listeners. But one of the apps that I use, and Amie, I believe Summit did use this app quite a bit, is MyFitnessPal. Mm-hmm. And so that's an app that I use every day to track the food that I'm eating. And it gives me the opportunity to break down what my portion sizes were and what macronutrients, which is a term we should probably describe for people. But what I'm looking at in terms of my calorie intake, my protein, my carbohydrate, and my fat. And kind of make some decisions about that and where I need to be every day on those things. I'm happy to hear you talk about starting the day with eggs and lunch meat, Amie, because every day at 9 o'clock, I have 2 hard-boiled eggs and some lunch meat, some ham, maybe throw in a handful of nuts or something in there as well. But why don't you talk about who is Summit Health? What do you guys do?
So we're a health and nutrition coaching company, and really we specialize in working one-on-one with clients to help them reach their goals. So it's sort of an interview process, like not just anyone who wants to work with Summit is really an ideal fit for us. So we have an application, and then I have 2 other coaches. We meet, we kind of discuss the applicant, we discuss their goals, we discuss if they feel like they're ready for this, and if they're a fit for our values, because there's lots of people, like we said, there's lots of people in the nutrition space. And we feel like if the client's values don't align with ours, it's just going to be a struggle. It's going to be a day in and day out, like, okay, we got to bring you here. We got to help you. And not to say that we don't do that. Like, so much of our coaching is mindset work, because most of us know what we should eat. Most of us know what good choices are. We know what we do. We know what we should be doing. But where people struggle is, how do I do it day in and day out? Mm-hmm. How do I stay motivated? How do I stay consistent? How do I remain patient? People who want to lose, say 30 pounds, they've tried for 2 years to do it on their own. They know what they should be doing. They'll be super consistent for 2 weeks and the scale doesn't move and they get frustrated and they say, forget it. And then they go back to doing everything they've always done. So we, as the coach, we're here checking in every week. We usually meet on Zoom, and we're talking about what worked, what didn't work. You had a social event. How did that go? It didn't go well. What can we do next time? How are your workouts feeling? Oh, they're feeling like garbage. Okay, when are we eating lunch? What do we need to do different? Should we add some caffeine to help this go a little bit better? Like, we just make small tweaks. But the difference is when you feel like throwing in the towel because you had a bad weekend or you had a bad week, your coach is there saying, we're not throwing in the towel. You are doing this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. And I think having someone outside of like your family, like it's better to be encouraged and feel supported maybe by someone like yourself or another summit coach instead of relying on your wife or your husband to try to hold you accountable. Or sometimes those family relationships can even get you off track because maybe you're trying to make certain decisions and your husband at home, he just wants to drink beer and eat pizza and, Doritos all weekend long. And so you can feel very unsupported. So having someone like your team, Amie, outside of that relationship can make a big difference.
Well, and honestly, just like your sleep podcast, he talked about that. He talked about how this has to be sort of a family affair. Your driver needs to communicate with his wife or his family. Hey, I need to catch up on some rest this weekend. I can't accomplish this, 24 item honey-do list. So nutrition is the same way. So much of what we talk with our clients about is setting up your environment for success. So we talk about red light foods, yellow light foods, and green light foods. A red light food is something that you cannot say no to. And once you start eating it, you eat the whole bag. You eat the whole, it's just one of those things we can't control. And so if your mate knows, you know what, your red light food is potato chips, then we may just have to come to an understanding that potato chips aren't in the house. If you want to enjoy those and you grab a small bag for your lunch, okay, but I can't have these in the house because these don't support me and where I need to be. Yeah. So it's having that conversation,
Yeah. Don't have it around and you won't eat it, right?
Yeah,
it's true. I mean,
I'm divorced with teenage kids, and that's kind of been a little bit of a struggle for me in my own health journey and trying to maintain my fitness is I have the type of personality that I can go all in. I can go overboard and I won't have anything in the house exactly for that reason, because if it's there, I'll want to eat it. And so if it's not there, then it's no problem. But I still want my kids to come and visit me too. And they don't like to come over and have nothing but broccoli in the fridge. And so I really have to find that balance of, maybe what do they enjoy that I don't as much, so it's not a big deal for me to have in the house.
The other thing is individual servings. Like if you can control, I know it's more expensive, but get the individual servings. And then if you're tempted to have one, hopefully you can control stopping after one.
Sure. Like you mean like the boxes with 20 bags of chips or the fruit snacks and a bunch of little packages, whatever.
Something like that.
I want to know, do you guys coach on then how to read your body? Because there's so many, they talk about deficiencies and how do you know what you need or what you don't. I mean, we talk about all these things you don't need. You don't need the sugar. You don't need too much of this or too much of that. But how do you know what you do need? Because I know like I said, I have young kids and I try to watch them. And I've been seeing lately bags under the eyes with kids. And that can mean iron deficiency or whatever. And I know that's super important. How do we listen to our bodies and know what that next step is?
I love that. So something that we use MyFitnessPal. You can use not everybody actually tracks in MyFitnessPal, but most of our clients journal their food, whether they write it down, they snap a photo of it, or they put it in MyFitnessPal. And the reason for that is it's exactly what you said. We need to know if they're coming, a lot of times people are coming in. Maybe your drivers are saying, I'm hungry all the time, or all I crave is carbs. All I crave is sweets. All I want is bread. That's something we hear really often. So what's that a sign of? It's a sign that they're not getting enough of the right things. So how do we know that though, unless we see what they're eating? So before a client starts to work with us, we ask them to track their food for 10 days. 10 days minimum. And then we go into their food diaries and we take a look at, you talked about macronutrients. Foundationally, how much protein are they getting on a daily basis? On average, most people coming to us are eating 70 grams of protein or less per day. Minimum for a woman who's 5'5" is 50 grams. So you'll have guys who are 6'3", 220 pounds eating 70 grams of protein. And there is no way that is enough. That is not enough. So the other thing we look at is fiber. The beautiful thing about MyFitnessPal and Chronometer is phenomenal at this. it breaks down how much vitamin D you're getting in a day, how much vitamin C you're getting in a day. Are you getting your B vitamins? These are integral things, especially in Minnesota when we're going through sort of cold and flu season, looking at those things, making sure they're getting enough. So for kids, obviously they're not going to track their food, but protein at every meal, trying to get 3 servings of fruits or veggies as a minimum. So for kiddos, I love the pouches. Like a lot of times they don't love eating. Find the fruits that they love. If they love berries, if they love pineapple, if they, whatever they'll eat, get them to eat it. But I love the pouches because sometimes they'll sneak like broccoli and honestly, for our truckers, and I do this a lot for our like hockey players who need to gain weight, smoothies. Throw some spinach in a smoothie with a banana. You don't even taste it. Throw some kale in with the smoothie. Do something to get some vegetables in there, even if you don't like them.
What about like have you heard of athletic greens?
Yes.
Is that a good way to get your vegetable, your micronutrients and stuff like that in your diet?
So I will plant my flag in the fact that we should always eat fruits and veggies. Like so many people, I will be like, hey, I didn't see anything green in your tracker this week. Like, what are we doing? Like, we need to eat something green. And they'll say, well, can I do this? Can I do a powder? Can I do this? I want you to eat actual vegetables. I want you to eat fruits. But as a supplement, it's great. Athletic Greens is fantastic. So it's kind of like either you take a multivitamin or you do Athletic Greens. Amazing. The great thing about Athletic Greens is you've got some of those additional, it's got, the adaptogens, it's got probiotics. So as an addition, fantastic. Especially if someone is not a great veggie eater, it's a good plan. The difference is fiber. When we eat fruits and veggies, we get fiber. Fiber is important because we should be pooping every day, right? This is something that our drivers could struggle with because our guts work on motility. And so if we are just sitting, I don't know about you, but when I go on a road trip, I don't know if this is TMI, but literally I will get so constipated. I'm sorry. But we're talking about food. You know what I mean? But because you're sitting. You're sitting and our bodies were designed to move. So this could be something they really are dealing with. So a green supplement could be great, but guess what? There's no fiber in that. Maybe an additional fiber supplement. I'm not talking like Miralax. I'm not talking a laxative. I'm talking fiber. Yeah. So fiber basically just adds roughage, adds volume to the stool. And then if we're adequately hydrated, it can be a great mix.
So when you talk about veggies, I kind of have a two-way question on that. One, in the last 10 years, a lot has changed in our food. Like, our food isn't as good as it used to be, and we might not know it. I do a lot of rabbit hole researching, so maybe I'm just over the top on this, but I just feel like, one, what the general public doesn't know is there's about 10 to 20 companies that own everything we eat, even though there's millions of brands. So what they decide to put in these brands and how they market to us by using like different packaging, and we are eating crap, especially in this country. Okay, so that's the first part. Secondly, I've been seeing a lot of like microwaves are bad for you, and a lot of our drivers on the road are microwaving things. It's not necessarily that frozen food is bad, but microwaves, I've read, are horrible. It's for you in how you make your food and heat it up. So I guess my question is, one, is that true? Like veggies, how are they processed? And then if it's like a frozen meal, is that something you should be avoiding? Is there a different way to make that? I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on those two things?
You're going to make me do it, aren't you? Okay. So I told you I'm happy. First of all, we'll talk about vegetables. Okay. You're right. So you guys, I cannot believe this. First podcast ever, and we're going to talk about microwaves, but this is great. Right? Vegetables. So you're right. Number one, our soil is depleted of so many nutrients, right? Mm-hmm. So the vegetables we get aren't as nutritious. They don't have all the vitamins and minerals that they used to have. They're covered in pesticides, and they're covered. It's just There's lots of things people are dealing with. The reality is I don't talk about the number one, get organic what you can. I shop at Aldi, right? Groceries are so expensive, and especially for our drivers and their families, budget is always going to be an issue. So if you are somewhere where your family can shop at an affordable grocery store like Aldi, they have so much organic produce. They have so much organic produce. And I understand that the regulations, there is a lot of red tape, but it is a better option. Organic produce is shown to have more vitamins and minerals, more nutrients than non-organic. The better option is if you have a friend who has a garden, or you can go to the farmer's market, go. I don't care if it's organic. Go to the farmer's market, stock up, freeze things, whatever you can do to get things from your local area. That's going to be fantastic. If you have a garden yourself, amazing. You know what I mean? But the reality is, even though things aren't as nutritious as they used to be, it is still better than something that's processed. It is still better than something that's been picked, because you think about, and I don't want to debunk greens powders either, but the reality is these companies are mass buying, spinach and broccoli and chlorella and all these different things. They're freeze drying it. They're grinding it into teeny little particles. Our bodies also actually weren't designed to eat it that way. They were designed to chew it, to produce all these different enzymes and to light up these hormones in the brain, which then as the stomach comes, it actually releases the appropriate digestive enzymes to actually digest that type of food. It's just a whole process. And when we sort of think that we know better by negating that process, we don't always, So supplement where you need to, but they're always great. Okay. Talking about the microwave. So you guys, we have a closed Facebook group called Mastering Nutrition. Anybody's able to join. If anybody who's listening to this podcast, if you want to join. We do live trainings every single week, very similar to this. And nothing blew up that group more than this woman going on and talking about microwaves. So I just funny. I have a little bit of PTSD. Here's the deal. Okay. Clients come to us eating McDonald's every day. And the last thing that I'm going to do is tell them that they should never use a microwave, because for them, moving from here to here is a better option, right? So myself, we don't use a microwave. We haven't had a microwave in our house in a decade, right? But it's a scale. This might be an improvement. So I don't want to say don't ever use a microwave. If that is what you have, it is not the end of the world. The reality is the microwave compositionally changes your food. Yeah. So yes, why is it that when you heat up a cup of water or coffee in the microwave, have you ever noticed how it gets cold really quickly? It's like within 20 minutes, it's boiling hot. And then it's like, well, not even 20 minutes. It's really more like probably 10 to 12. It's almost cold because molecularly it heated up the water, but structurally it hasn't. It's not the same as boiling it on the stove. So I brought props. Okay, so what I'm holding in my hand, you guys, is it's a electric lunchbox. So this might be great for our drivers. Okay, so it's basically just like a little thing that you can plug into your cigarette lighter. If you're in the office, you can plug it into the wall. Throw your meal in there. Plug it in when you're headed out for the day, or if they're over the road, plug it in when you wake up in the morning. Pull your food out of the cooler, throw it in there, and it will be hot and delicious without molecularly changing the structure. The second prop that I brought, this is something, so you guys, again, I mentioned to Jenna before we started, we also own a window cleaning company. My husband cleans windows. And so literally for 6 months out of the year, he lives in his truck. And that's what we ran into. I'm like, if he's not stopping to microwave his stuff at Quick Trip, how is he eating a warm meal? We know it gets like 30 below in Minnesota. You want warm food. So I would literally, in a skillet, heat up on our menu this week, we've got roast with potatoes and what's our vegetable? Green beans. So I literally will throw it in a pan. I'll heat it up in our pan, and then I will put it in here, and it's warm 4 hours later. I always heat it up with warm water. I let this sit with warm water first. So having a thermos, this is a wide mouth one, so it makes it easy to eat out of. Get one that's made for food. Clean Canteen, I love. They stay hot a really, really long time. Or an electric lunchbox is a great option. The other thing that truckers have is crock pots, the mini little crock pots for their truck. That's also a good option.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you that exact question that you just addressed, because I know that you're a big advocate, and maybe you can talk through some ideas for guys here. But for success when it comes to eating, it does take preparation. And I know that can be a barrier for some people who just feel like, man, it's hard to get myself organized. I hear the term meal prep and I lose my mind trying to think about what am I going to eat and what recipe and how am I going to cook it all. And then the reheat thing too, right? Because I see you'll post some videos on Instagram of your meal prep for the week. And so as we were just talking, I'm thinking, okay, I've seen Amie's meal prep. How's she reheating all that stuff without a microwave? But so now we know they can use the lunchbox, they can use a thermos, they can use a crock pot. How would you counsel guys who say I want to try some meal prep, or I want to have some stuff in my truck that I know I can reheat and have for dinner rather than going into McDonald's or going into and getting that truck stop food?
Yeah. I mean, again, I would start with your protein. What do you like? Okay. So another meal we have this week is we have Gouda stuffed burgers. That sounds so indulgent, right? They are Gouda stuffed. I made Juicy Lucy's. We don't need a bun. So there's our carbs are I made smashed potatoes. So pick your protein. If you like beef, figure out what you want to have with beef. If you like turkey, do that. If you like roast. So here's what I would do is I would batch cook. Look for 4 pounds. Grab 4 to 6. For Chad and I, we do 6 pounds. When I batch cook our protein, I cook 6 pounds, and that gets us enough meals for the week. So batch cook it. If you're already doing the work, if you're heating up the grill or the Blackstone, or you're putting it in the crock pot when you're home on the weekend, just make a good amount and then shred it, chop it up, whatever you need to do, and portion it out. Then I would say build your carb. With the burgers, I thought potatoes sounded really, really good. Last week, I did these jalapeno chicken sausages. And I was like, I think rice would be really good with this. So I batch cooked in my Instapot a thing of rice, and I just portioned out a small amount of rice. And then I always think I need a veggie. So I put celery with that. I figured it would have an Asian flair. And then sauce. Hot sauce adds great flavor without a lot of calories. I used hot honey on that meal, and that was delicious.
Yeah.
Spices. Costco has some amazing spices. And again, these are ways to add flavor to your food without a lot of calories. Costco also has a 0 sugar barbecue sauce sweetened with stevia, which I love. And you can find just a low sugar option. Put sauce on it and you're going to be fine. And here's the reality. Some people say, I don't want to eat the same thing every day. I don't want to eat the same thing for 5 days in a row.
Yeah.
You'll drive through McDonald's every day. And the reality is, I understand you may not feel like eating the thing. Okay. And Chad will say this all the time. He's like, oh, I got to eat this. I got to eat this again. He gets tired of eating the same thing. I'm like, just put it in your mouth. And once he starts eating, it's good. It's good. Yeah. And you realize how good you actually feel eating food that your body needs. And how about instead of saying, what do I feel like eating? How about we say, what does my body need? And give it what it needs. It'll be better for it.
A minute on the lips, a lifetime on the hips is what I say. So you can't feed your mouth. You have to feed your body.
Yes. Yeah.
It really does come down to mindset, which is, I think, why your company and what you guys offer is such a cool thing, because a lot of people need help with that mindset. It comes down to a decision. Do I want to be happy in this meal, or do I want to be happy with my days and my weeks and my months and how I look naked in the mirror, right? But a lot of people in that moment, the short-term pleasure wins. And you see this in all aspects of life, where people will give up their bigger goals because they want that short-term pleasure. And I think the best example is food, because people do that all the time. And so having somebody there, like a nutrition coach or a friend or your spouse, I didn't mean to make it sound like they weren't a good option before, but having somebody that can encourage you like you did to Chad, just put it in your mouth, man. Like, you know, you're going to like it once you start eating it. That can be the push. But for our drivers, it's tough because they spend every day by themselves. They eat almost every meal by themselves. And we have a few guys who are on Facebook and documenting their journey with getting over diabetes and or how they're living with it and managing life and finding success. One guy's name is Roy. He's always putting up pictures of the meals that he's eating. And I think for him, using social media and just documenting that is the encouragement to keep going.
Holds them accountable by posting it. We all expect them to do it.
So you guys, the research, there's so many peer-reviewed research studies that show just by documenting what you're eating, and that's why we have them food journal, whether it's writing down, taking a picture, or tracking it in an app, we reduce consumption by 30% just by documenting what we eat. So when we talk about, can we talk about some principles for blood sugar balance, for like staving off diabetes or moving away from it? Would that be okay?
That'd be great. And I'll just say that what you just said is 100% right, because when I use MyFitnessPal, I'll look at something that I want to eat and think to myself, I don't want this on my record of eating today. And I just won't eat it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're 100%. But quick question. If I chew it and then spit it out, besides an eating disorder, is anything else bad with that?
Stop it. Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about blood sugar a little bit.
Okay. So this is the number 2 reason I got into health coaching. I had a couple, very good friend of mine. He really, really overweight. Okay. Just not great with nutrition, clearly. Found out he was diabetic, type 2, of course. And just, it hit him hard. And I was sad to see that, but at the same time, I was happy that it hit him hard because they needed to make changes. And I was like, if this is what it takes for you to change your habits, so be it, because you can reverse this. Like you did, this is not a death sentence. You know what I mean? So I was sad, but at the same time, I was happy because they were actually making changes. So it was 2 weeks in, he was ready to have an appointment with the dietitian at the hospital. I was with them. We were in the cities. And she dropped him off. We were running some errands, picked him back up. And guess what he said when he got in the car? He said, "Take me home. You're making me cookies." And I was sitting here thinking, when you left, like you were ready to change everything and you had. And this and he go, but after meeting with the dietitian at the hospital, this is what you say, "Take me home. You're making me cookies." And again, I wasn't there in the meeting. I don't know exactly how things went down, but basically what he walked away with was, you can still eat things that you enjoy. You just need to understand how to medicate appropriately.
That's terrible.
I was so upset. I was like, I have to help people. I have to help people see that if you can change your health. We've had people get off their metformin completely. They have normal blood sugars, A1C 5 and 6, where it was 9 and 12. Blood pressure medication. We've had clients move off of blood pressure medication. It's just all these things are controlled with habits and lifestyle, right? So I would say 3 things are super important when it comes to regulating blood sugar. Never eat a carb without a protein or a fat. Never, ever, ever. So I don't care if it's an apple, right? It's you pair your carb with a protein or a fat. And the reason is it slows down how quickly that carb hits your bloodstream. Substantial. Okay. So never again. You know what I mean? I have a client, same thing. We're moving her away from it. She loves Reese's peanut butter cups. And again, you guys, you heard me say, I don't like saying nothing's off limits. So I'm like, you can have one, but guess what? We're eating 2 mini beef sticks with our Reese's peanut butter cups. And she does that every time. It slows down and we test it. We test her blood sugar. We see what's happening. right? The second thing that's really key is movement after a meal. Getting in a 10-minute walk after eating a meal can reduce blood sugar by almost 30%. It's substantial. So if you can time your meals around your bathroom stops, if you know, hey, I'm going to stop at this place for a bathroom stop, I'm going to eat my meal now, or I'm going to eat whatever the timing is, get in some movement after that meal. It is substantial. Secondly, fiber. If you have massive amounts of fiber at every seat, meaning vegetables, if you eat massive amounts of vegetables or have really good whole grains, avocado is really high in fiber. Again, it's a healthy fat. If someone is hypoglycemic or diabetic, getting in enough fiber at every meal slows down that insulin response. Yeah, it's really big.
Super good tips. Thank you, Amie. So Jenna and I obviously have other jobs here at the building that we probably need to make sure that we're taking care of. Would you be willing to be a guest for us again soon? Because
part 2, man.
Yeah, I feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg here. We haven't even talked about movement and everything that you have to share with us about how to use our bodies and how that affects our health too. So we would love if you would be willing to come back on the show again.
I'd love to. Absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect.
To conclude, what would your wrap up for a trucker listening to this be? What's a takeaway or two here that he can implement today to be healthier and to feel better out on the road?
I love it. Number one, I would say start your day with protein. Figure out a way to start your day with protein. Figure out a way to prep something. Do not leave your house empty-handed. Prep something. And we didn't really talk about this a lot, but the other trend with over-the-road drivers is hydration. They don't drink a lot because they don't want to have to stop and go to the bathroom a lot. But hydration is important. So finding that happy balance of not just Monsters or coffee, but also water. Super important.
Yeah, that was on my list of questions here that we'll have to do next time because we talked a lot about solids, but you've got liquids and obviously H2O. So yeah.
Well, I wanted to have you on this summer. We ran into some snags. You had a few health issues going on yourself, and you look great, Amie. I'm so glad you're healthy and doing well. I need to get back down to your CrossFit spot and see you guys. Have you put me through the ringer on a workout down there? And we'll get you back on here again soon so we can keep going through because there's so much good information here, and it's such a great conversation. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Amie.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
I want to thank everyone for listening to this conversation today. I know that there's a lot that you can take out of it to be healthier out there, out on the road. We care about you guys, not just as truck drivers, but as husbands and fathers and as people. And so we want to make sure that you get home safe driving and you also get home safe healthy. If you want to learn more about Autumn Transport, you can check us out on Instagram or Facebook at Autumn Transport. Please share this podcast with someone that you think would benefit, which I think would be everybody. Take care. Drive safe.